so, so scheduled, but this is great.
It's like a giant TV show. Sábado Gigante.
Well, since I don't have a TV, that's another reason I'm not used to.
That's the reason to have a TV.
I do try to show up at work on time, though, so they'll pay me.
Yeah.
Well, welcome everybody. It's really good to see this group of familiar faces, mostly, and from different venues, and you're not out of context. You might need to wear a name tag so I would know your name, but I recognize your faces, and anyway, welcome. It's ironic and great that Merrimac Mic now meets at the Merrimac Library. It didn't start out that way. So, I would like to read a poem that I just sort of finished, and it's partly a concrete poem that the words make a shape. I have a few extra copies, but it's supposed to be. Well, let me read the poem. Yes, be. This is all about being. We don't exist if we're not being. Yes, I know that being means alive, being good, being smart, being bad sometimes. Sometimes we're being poets. Sometimes we're being worker bees. And by the way, this piece is dedicated to bees who are just barely being alive. The agribusiness corporations are so busy being greedy, they don't seem to realize there won't be much left without bees. But before I go any further, belaboring the point, becoming even more of a biatch, I want to bequeath you with the beneficent, beguiling, totally befitting beauty of this little two-letter word. We wouldn't be if we weren't. So be everything you can think of. We belong, we're beloved, and we can't get out of being. And I even figured out how to put a watermark with a word. That's a major accomplishment. So there's a little B watermark behind it. I've got a few copies. So now I guess I'm supposed to be the hostess of our segment. So, let's see, let's go next. All right, so Merrimac Mic is known for its diversity. We have a great number of different styles and all kinds of things. And Anne Uva, known as Anne Margaret, her pen name, has a very distinctive style. Please come up, Anne. We'd love to have you.
Thank you, Isabel. And this poem that I wrote, I'm going to read four. The first one was inspired by Isabel. If you remember, Old Man Winter was hanging on by a dear thread and just would not give up. So I overheard Isabel saying, I would love to hear Anne write a poem getting rid of Old Man Winter in her style. So this is for you, Isabel. It's entitled, Seekers of the Solstice. Why dost thou linger amongst seekers of the solstice? An unwelcome presence thou hast proven to be. We can no longer tolerate the arthritic cold of thy dastardly ways. May the firestorm of 1,000 fireflies betake thee to a blazing inferno. Make way for the rebirth of what has already been, and that which shall not cease. Why dost thou hover as a vulture over its decaying meal, annoyingly pulling at our roots as they await to spring forth their mighty emerald vines? A sub-zero crystallized being, Thou art without a soul. Cower beneath the essence of our collective energies. Feel the thaw beneath thy feet. Spring hath no fury, only eternal embers that spark the flames of life. This one I wrote, it's entitled Insidious Deliberations, and it's, sure a lot of us can relate to this, and it's just to encourage people knowing that they're not, to help them realize they're not alone in their negative thought, because we can be our own worst enemy or we can be our best friend. So this is just to help you know that you're not alone and just be mindful of it. And again, it's called Insidious Deliberations. Indeed, there are words expressed that are mere symbolisms rendering the conditions of our hearts. But I speak of the more powerful ones, the ones that have the power to affect the psyche, leading it into a stupor, utterances that remain unspoken. These are the words that ricochet incessantly within our faculties, having long-lasting effects, ones that plague our very souls and wage war against our very being. It is a co-articulatory war that is cloaked deep within the confines of our mind. Like you, I am a combatant of such a war, a coalition betwixt tribulation and our very own negative thought. Let us fight on then, my brethren. Let us seek out collective replenishment, lest our armament deplete. And I just have two short ones. This one's called Relinquish. And sometimes you get into a relationship and you just don't want to let go. Sometimes you have to let go despite, the other not having the same feelings as you. So this is what that is. And it's entitled Relinquish. Thou art plagued by the deafening beat of a love-lorn heart, and the sweat above thy brow glistens with a paramour's guilt. Pitiful polecat with thy tail betwixt thy members, why dost thou continue to clutch the jagged rocks upon the precipice of irreconcilable differences? Release thy throttling grip thou hast upon a free spirit. One must relinquish unrequited love. And this last one is entitled Quest for Love. And it's, a lot of people search for love, and this is the result of someone finding true love. I have clomb this mountainside far, far too many times in search of thee. The very earth beneath my feet hath grown weary of my steps, and she can no longer tolerate my tread. I do not recall from whence I have cometh, or to whither I am going. I do know that my quest and sole purpose of this trek was to seek out and find the beauty in my dream. Whilst I have been traveling, I have seen no such beauty until mine eye was placed upon thee. At last my journey has met its end, and thou art my reward.
Just a minute, Anne. Other people don't know the tradition. Usually, if you come to Merrimac Mic, you get a pendant or a prize or something for reading, and so this is a glow-in-the-dark flower that you for your winter poem, just in case spring never comes, like today.
Okay, you laugh.
Well, Louise, are you ready to read? Do you want to read next? Okay. Louise Hart has been a poet for years and years, and a fairly recent member of Merrimac Mic, and she has done a great job of promoting Merrimac Mic and all of the planet, or at least this part of the world. So, Louise, please come up. braving the elements of weather and hospital and life to be here.
Thank you, please.
Yes.
I didn't know until this morning I was going to be able to be here. Technically, I'm sneaking out on all my money. Anyway, luckily I have so many poems to draw from. I even found a few more notebooks that I filled. When I was young, I used to fill a notebook and I'd have to get rid of it because I had 5 older male siblings. Needless to say what my life would have been like if, in fact, they'd gotten a hold of them. Consequently, I found a few more I hidden away. So we have some poems to read today. And this one, by the way, was written, like so many poets, we have this protest in us. And when I was in college, I had the dubious, favor of being in the class with Sidney Lanier's grandson, who said, "How many poets are there in this class?" And of course I raised my hand. And he said, "Well, I just want to know which one of us, which one of you, as graduates of the university, will lead a poor life."
Oh, great.
And he had a dislike for the city where I was born. So I obviously wrote poems right back to him about the city. And his main thing was about how much concrete and macadam there was in our city. So to him I wrote, "A parking lot on a rainy day. Water beads op art on, rain-drenched cars parked on Delta, black tar lots, where nature fights for a place in life against man's obsession with suppression." And the whole time I was in the hospital this time, I had, as usual, nurses, patients, and all else sitting by my bed trying to get me to tell them about how to use nature to meet our needs. And I had written a poem. I should have had it with me. I could have handed it out just as well. It's called Old Time Remedies. Onion plants chase away black ants. Remember that. We're in that season. Garlic protects against a cold. Lemon tea perks one up. Cornstarch smooths the baby's bum. Old time remedies, wisdom of yore, tidbits from another century past, from grandma to mother to me. For every problem a solution, for every physical ill a cure. Nothing is totally impossible. Problems are but challenges to our discovery and creativity. For those who have the keys, practical knowledge and experience to know how to harness nature's waiting remedies. Short one. Treasures lost. And this came at a time when 3 generations of my family died in 3 years. It was a very difficult time, one that you hope you never have to face again. Of course, they've all gone, so you're left. Someone else is going to have to face it. Treasures lost. Pale green baby leaves breaking free, like ducks or chicks from another of nature's shells. Refractive rain patterns on a window pane, kaleidoscopic snowflakes in a winter storm. Like the smallest eye of a tailor's needle, they exist beyond the dimming, blurred reality of aging eyes and infirm body. Placed teasingly out of reach of wonder-filled, exploring senses, that cherished each bud, drop, and flake by an indifferent chromosomal roulette of genes. Spun by others, unmindful those many years ago of what I would have be given, would have to let go, as time prepared me to sleep under snow. I should mention that. My great-grandmother was one of the original Irish Mill girls in Lowell. Both of her daughters followed her. And my mother started off there, got out in the, right before World War. They knew that they would need nurses. She went right for it. This one is actually written about, it's sort of ironic, okay? Because if you watch trees in a storm, and we certainly watched enough of them collapse, This is a tribute to the one that didn't, okay? To the century of my childhood. I grew up on the ominous shadow of a dying elm. It towered over me, over the house where I lived, over all the surrounding trees. It stood ready to crush the house in me with its diseased limbs. I saw it first as a threat, and only later understood it was a century of my childhood and family. It stood unyielding through windstorm and harsh seasons. It outlived the privileged bushes at its base, and the nearby full-leaf maples and tender birches that succumbed to lesser ills than what troubled it. I see it still, solid though rotting, dignified though humiliated, with a minimum of 2 leafings a year, necessitated by the relentless disease which ate at its gut, but not at its spirit, until the day its limbs dropped one after another, each rotted through, evidence of the elm's determination to see one more generation into history before it would rest. I look for it still, where it once stood, where my parents once lived. Finish with one of my favorites, actually. It's a tribute to my grandmother, and how our generations are tied together, and we get to remember them. On a midnight walk with C.K. Jung. Leaning heavy-leaved maples guard dark, eerie shadows by the side of a narrow, blazed road. The smell of high blueberries and ripened blackberries perfume the air, now quiet after an early August thunder shower. Cricket chirps and falling water drops fascinate an imagination already mesmerized by shiny black mirror-like puddles. Clear as painted glass by the side of the road, it does not matter if I am young or I am old. For this moment, this night, it is for me as it was for my mother and my grandmother before me, as it will someday be for my child after me. For though the individual players change, the scene, the moment, the experience, and the feelings bring continuity to the generations.
I'm giving you this wonderful, not quite gold-plated plastic fork for picking up so many good edible words, and keep showing up.
You take care.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, and now I would like to introduce our world-famous, now, Elizabeth Wolf, who is the winner of the Rattle Chapbook. She's one of 3 winners of the 2018 Rattle Poetry Award, and, well, I mean, it's exciting to have her here in person. She's the reason that we meet at the Merrimac Library. I won't give them your address, just in case there might be repercussions, but. Okay, thank you. Elizabeth. Good to hear.
And now that you've found us in the Merrimac Library, I hope you come back the 4th Sunday of every month, except this month, which is next week. So I'd like to start with, since Merrimac Mic Anthology broke it first, the opening to the chapbook that won, which isn't out until 2019, so the excitement is now, but I don't have books to share yet. Coming attractions. And I also want to read this for Mother's Day. Tangled Web. Before HIPAA, before women could carry credit cards in their own names, when talking about birth control with unmarried young women could land you in the Charles Street jail, my mother's legs were tingling. Some days they felt hot, swollen, and stiff. Some days they didn't feel much at all. My mother spent summer afternoons sitting on her screened-in porch with bags of frozen vegetables draped over her legs, needlepoint in hand, or a deck of cards for a wicked game of bridge. One fall, my mother went blind in one eye, but then her vision returned. My father was a lawyer. We had the best of Boston healthcare. When my mother's primary care physician and her consulting neurologist and her ophthalmologist concluded the most likely diagnosis was multiple sclerosis, they let my father know over lunch with drinks in town at the club. My father was a first-generation American, a bombardier in World War II, a graduate of Harvard back when there were quotas for Jews. My father was the dictionary definition of responsibility and competence. My father was lost. He sought counsel of his best friend, R.M., a fellow lawyer. He sought counsel of his best friend, Dr. K., now their physician. He went before his formidable father-in-law, who had founded the law firm my father now managed. Late in the fall of 1968, after bullets felled Martin and Bobby, after the Tet Offensive and the Broadway opening of Hair, my father, filled with the best of intentions, made an awful decision to keep my mother's diagnosis a secret from her. Believing the stress of naming the disease would make it worse, my father signed up to be her guardian, the gatekeeper of incoming information. He would tell her when the time was right. He was certain he would know when the time was right. This was something he could do. He could protect my mother from her own body. He accepted that burden as a husband's duty. So my father signed up her primary care physician, her consulting neurologist, her ophthalmologist, her father and her mother, many friends and cousins, and swore them to secrecy. My father managed this whole conspiracy flawlessly until the summer of 1975, when he unexpectedly dropped dead. He was 50. His widow was 45. His children were 22, 19, and 16. My father left an insurance policy and an estate plan. My father left no instructions for how to handle the secret, and so it continued to be kept. So I have a couple short ones. I've just been on a great international adventure, and they do tie into the beginning. Just hang with me. Meeting the host family. There are smiles all around the table. Grandma Oma nods, encouraging us all to eat, eat. Grandpa is still in the kitchen, still cooking. Grandma approves my fledgling chopstick skills. I am an American, Polish, Latvian Jew visiting China, where my Episcopalian WASP Jewish daughter is teaching English to a 4-year-old German Chinese girl who is proudly waving pink plastic chopsticks with pictures of Peppa Pig, a British cartoon, and crying, look at me," while she stuffs an entire yummy dumpling into her mouth. And after I toured China with my daughter, which was awesome, I went to Vietnam for a few days, and my daughter was unable to accompany me because she had a one-entry visa. So I got to take my own vacation. Primate customs. The nice young Vietnamese scientist working in the park with pygmy slow loris could not believe I was traveling solo. No family, no one to bring with you. He had a lovely British accented English and was clearly concerned. The next day I checked into a charming hotel on the beach on the South China Sea, just beyond a fishing village. The room number was my mother's street address. I do not believe in coincidence. I am not traveling alone. One more, or am I done?
No, there's time. Go ahead.
Okay. So while I was in Vietnam, I had a tour guide, which is a wonderful way to travel. They're depending on tourism for their economy, so it helps get the money out of some of the hotels and into the local people who need it. And you learn so much more than you would if you were just traveling solo. So this is my guided tour, Lam Dong Province, Vietnam. It is 10 a.m. and already over 90 degrees, 34 Celsius. I am sweating buckets, guzzling water from a plastic bottle, hiking in the Vietnamese jungle in Cat Tien National Park. There are towering redwood and blackwood and dense rainforest brush. We hear something skittering near us, but can't see what it was. I picture myself as an 18-year-old grunt, laden with gear, clutching an M16. We step over a small gully. In raining season, this is stream, our guide says. In rainy season, sometimes is flooding. Viet Cong use this trail. Fighting bad here, very bad. Not far, 10 kilometer, 15 kilometer, jungle burned down. Agent Orange, now we regrow. Not far, 15, 20 kilometer, government offered ethnic people, communist people, people from other parts, 1 hectare for farm, 1 hectare to build house. Many people come, make new towns, grow dragon fruit, grow cashew nut, grow tapioca. A strong water buffalo make a good plow. At night, the good farmer picks leeches off of buffalo, make him sleep under mosquito nets so he not get weak. Up in mountains, grow coffee, grow tea. The civet, he make the best coffee. Many people visit.